Hi, welcome to the Personal Branding for Business podcast, where I interview inspiring and interesting people who build their personal brands for business success. And I'm Olga Bondreva. I'm the founder of Modem Up Social Selling Agency. And today I'm chatting with Joe Morris, former head of social media and employee advocacy at Capgemini. Joe led the company's social media strategy and built one of the world's largest employee advocacy programs, training over 300,000 employees. So it's impressive. Hi, Joe. Thank you for coming, Joe. Your experience is very valuable, and that's amazing. And I would like to ask a lot of questions about employee advocacy and all of the related things. And the first question will be about the term. For someone who is not familiar with the term employee advocacy, would you just describe it and maybe explain a little bit how it works?
Yeah, of course. Employee advocacy is at the basic level, it's about getting your employees to advocate for your business. So to become part of your marketing mix effectively. So it's about enabling employees uh, to connect with people, to use their networks to influence, ultimately to influence decision makers. So that's it in a nutshell. Very basic form that takes using some kind of a platform, sharing messages with your employees that they can then post on their social media. So that's it at a very basic level.
So it's mostly about social media, right? It's or some other channels as well.
Yes, it's mostly about social media, but not only social media. It's because there's obviously it's not just digital for a start, that being able to ensure that your employees can advocate for your brand and be able to speak knowledgeably and positively about the brand in whatever scenario that is, whether that's at a careers fair, at a technology event, conference, something like that, then uh, that's really important too, and in some ways more important, that kind of face-to-face thing. So the focus tends to be on social media, but really
Mhm.
you want it's that kind of 360 view, and it's not just about posts on LinkedIn either. It can also be video, it can also be blogs, that kind of thing as well. So, but as I said, the generally people focus, especially B2B for sure, on LinkedIn.
Mhm. Yeah, LinkedIn is an amazing platform for that, and encouraging people to post. It can be challenging, right? Because they can feel
Yes.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yes.
they sometimes they don't want to. How do you do it, and how
Hmm.
have you built a program for so many people?
Well, it is very difficult. And one thing you have to accept early on is that it's not for everybody. Not everybody is going to do it. Not everybody uses social media. We know that, very high proportion of the people that have a LinkedIn profile, for instance, are consumers. They will read content. A lot of them won't like or engage with posts at all. It's a very small, I forget what the numbers, 7%, something like that, maybe, that actually posts on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And, there are other platforms that are maybe a bit more or a bit less. So lots of people have Instagram profiles, but they don't really post on it, and so on. So that's one thing, is you have to accept that not all of your employees, you're not going to suddenly have this huge army of advocates just by pressing a few buttons and enabling a few things. Um,
Mhm. It's interesting, and how to find these people, the right people who actually will
yeah,
post, will do it.
yeah. I mean that is a real challenge, and I think there's a few different ways you can do it. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do really is, one thing is that it's not one size fits all when it comes to advocacy. Uh,
Definitely.
that you need to place some bets first of all on where because it does take a lot of effort and work, very hands-on. 340,000 employees, you can't. It's just not possible. So you have to segment them. In which case, my recommendation is to start at the top. Um, you want your leaders to lead. by example, by being active on social media. It signals to people, first of all, that this is okay as far as the company is concerned. Um, it also gives an example to follow. Oh well, look, this person, the CEO, is doing it. Look how well they're doing. Hopefully, and they're growing. They're following, growing their influence, growing their visibility overall. Um, and that really encourages other people. It starts to trickle down that the next the next layer below the CEO are like, I want what she's having. Can you do that for me too? And so on and so on. So I think that's really important, is that you first of all start with those people, and because those are the ones, the people that are going to get the most attention, just by dint of their position in the company. I mean,
Mhm.
yes, a lot of that attention will be internal, but I mean, let's be honest with ourselves, that for a lot of people, we'll see that there is an internal comms element to it too. Um,
Mhm.
so yes, it's really important that you focus on the leadership. That will really help you just spread the word first of all, and give people the mindset that
Mhm.
this is a thing that they can do, and that this is a good thing for them. Uh,
And it's interesting. This is how you can transform the whole company's culture, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
you could just start with just one person, right? If
Hmm.
you were able to get your CEO to do it, then it really it can influence everybody else, pretty
Hmm.
much.
I just wanted to comment that we've launched an employee advocacy program for NetUp, and there we started with advocates, people who really wanted to participate, and
Hmm.
they were
Hmm.
very enthusiastic. And only on the second step, we went to the top leaders, because they also needed some examples
Yes.
of someone who does it. And then when it's validated, when they feel that and they can see that it works, they the leaders say, okay, we will start posting as well. So what do you think about this kind of approach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it depends on the people. Ultimately, that's the thing, is that you can't use a cookie cutter approach. Some people are going to be inclined to do it. Some people do it naturally. Some people are already doing it without your support. And frankly, they don't may not want your support. It's like, I'm fine, I'm good, thanks. I've already got
Yeah.
30,000 followers all
Don't.
by myself. Right,
Yeah.
don't interfere.
Yeah.
Which is totally fine. So that, of course, then your role is just enable them as needed, and that's it. But also then use those people as to champion what they do, and the whole concept of building up a personal brand, and use them to influence your other employees. So I think it's a little chicken or egg scenario, because yes, you can. One great way to do it is to find those people, identify the people, maybe, using Sales Navigator or something like that. If you've got a large organization, to identify, okay, who is it that's already doing this? Let's look at what they're doing, talk to them about their approach to doing it, and then build it out that way. As I said, you can start with leadership, but you can also start strategically with, okay, who are the people that have the right expertise that will support our strategic priorities today. If you're doing a big push around electric vehicles, for instance, then focus on those people that have a lot of expertise around electric vehicles and have something interesting to say as well, because the two don't necessarily go together. Um, and you can like cast a fairly broad net, and just try 100 people, and then see maybe 20 of those people will kind of actually get it and want to do it, because ultimately if they don't want to do it, forget it. There's just no point. So maybe 20% of those people will do it, and then focus on those people, and then maybe then cast another net in a different place. So there are lots of different ways to do it, I think. My recommendation is to be strategic about it, to be selective. While we were enabling it for everybody, we were really focused on a very small percentage of the employee base. it's about, getting the most bang for your buck, and to some extent that's literal bucks, right? Because if you're paying for a platform, you're paying per license cost, you're paying for the time for people that are going to do the training and so on, as well. You really want to be selective, I think, about it.
Mhm.
But while using things like LinkedIn, my company, we used that while it lasted, to encourage all employees, or just to make it available to employees that want to do that as well. I don't think the tool was ever really, I think LinkedIn got lost interest in it before they'd even launched it. And so it
It
never
was called
evolved.
LinkedIn Elevate. Yeah, I remember.
Well, before that, they had LinkedIn
Yeah.
Elevate, but then they stopped using Elevate. And
Yeah.
Elevate was okay, but that was a premium tool.
Yeah.
But then they had My Company, which is free element to any company page. I think you had to have a minimum of, was it 1,000 followers, something like that. I think,
Mhm.
but they've given up on that as well. They ran that for a
Mm.
couple of years. It didn't work from my perspective. It just,
Mhm.
yeah, the execution was not great.
Mhm.
Honestly, didn't live up
Mhm.
to its promise. But so then you can help other employees do that if they want to. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah. But I think start small, start strategic. Even if you're starting with just single people, you pick one person there, one person there, one person there, from
Mhm.
different segments of your organization, for instance.
Yeah,
That's a
and
great way to start.
it feels that motivation, like people's motivation, is the key here. That's they
Yeah,
want to do it. Yeah, they are active. Yeah, and
exactly. And
Mhm.
competition, actually, you don't underestimate the value of a bit of competitiveness in it, whether that's in the way that you reward people, for
Mhm.
instance. And there's some people say we shouldn't have to reward them for it, but even if it's like, okay, give them a t-shirt or something like that, or give them a baseball cap or something that they might wear in the office, or at office social gatherings or something, so that people can see, well, how did you get that? That's really cool. Where did you get that? And then it becomes a kind of badge of honor in a way, that they are part of this special group. And that's the other thing you can
Mhm.
do, is try and make them feel special, that they're give them access to exclusive stuff. So whether that's like exclusive training, interesting presentations from external people, stuff like that. Um,
Mhm. That's
or
nice.
whether you're just giving them a bit more internal recognition, shout outs on kind of internal newsletters, or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
Just to kind of elevate those people. And also, a lot of the platforms, most of them I think probably have leaderboards, in terms of who's using them. Those can be a good thing. Some people are quite motivated by them.
Mhm.
uh, the problem is, it has to be, you have to be fairly clever about how you use them, because inevitably
Mhm.
there'll be people who game the system and are doing stuff just to get points, right,
Yeah.
and get themselves in the top 10, in which case, that's of no value to you whatsoever.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
they do
Mhm.
tend to reward volume,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
that's the thing, you're
before
not looking for volume.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Before starting my agency, I worked at Microsoft, and there I organized an employee advocacy program. And
Mhm.
some employees, they were so competitive, and they just started, for example, creating empty Twitter profile and just posted something there. So it was just zero,
Yeah,
zero actually value for business, and they
yeah.
just did it to get some points. So yeah, it can be tricky, and how to
Yes,
be
yes.
part with this.
It's just human nature. Some people,
Yeah.
that's what they get satisfaction from. And maybe you could look at, well, okay, if they need that to get satisfaction, then something's missing, right? Maybe we give them an alternative that has a bit more value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, of course it should be like business related value, yeah, included. And it's interesting. You've mentioned that some people, they, of course, they already post something, and maybe they don't need you or any other like employee advocacy professional to help them, but some
Hmm.
people, they don't post. And what do
Yes.
you think about it? So content is very important in employee advocacy programs. And should, for example, companies or employee advocacy professionals just create some maybe ready-made content for them, or you need to teach people to like just help them somehow to motivate them to create their
Hmm.
own content?
Well,
How do
in an
you-
ideal world, you would never have to write a post for somebody else. That's the
Yeah.
ideal, right? Everybody is
Mhm.
writing their own authentic posts using their authentic voices and their authentic opinions. But
Yeah,
that's not reality.
for
And
sure.
so whether it is the CEO of the company or an expert in a particular area or somebody working in sales or something like that, there are inevitably going to be people who are kind of just intimidated by a blank screen,
Hmm.
right? And they're like, I don't know where to start. What do I talk about? Um, so I think providing people with canned messages is a great way to get them started. Ultimately,
Hmm.
you've got to teach people how to get past that blank screen, how to get started. Um, and I think that the best way of doing that is basically to teach them by doing. So give them some messages that they can share and see, oh, look, okay, this went all right actually, and I see I got some good responses. And they do that a few times, and ideally, they get, you give them a free sample, and then they get hooked on it. That ideally, that's the way that you go. Apart from anything else, just what you don't want is 50, 100 people all sharing the same message, the same post.
Yeah.
I've seen that from other
Hmm.
companies where I've seen, oh, look, this and this, these three people have all posted verbatim the same thing. um, and the algorithm doesn't like it either. There's duplicate content, and it isn't authentic.
Hmm.
So you have to see it as a means to an end, a way of doing it. I think what you don't want to do is say, okay, we're just going to give them content to share. They just have to click a button. They don't even have to read it. It doesn't matter so long as it's there. Um, then and that's it. We're doing advocacy because you're really not. And I'm
Yeah.
very confident that if you just keep doing that, then you're not going to get anywhere. Ultimately, you might be able to say, "Well, look, yeah, look, this post had X number of impressions, right? Because 100 people each with 1,000 followers posted it. Terrific. Did anybody read it? Did anybody like it? Did anybody engage in it? Did it help them build their network? Did it help your brand reach the people that it really wants to reach?" Um, and
Yeah.
the answer is going to be no, right?
And usually
Because
corporate content works not so good on personal profiles, because from personal profiles, people just expect
Mhm,
different
mhm,
kind of
mhm.
content.
It
Yeah.
right, and that's the other thing too. Okay, share with them ready-made content, but don't just share branded content. Nobody's going to want to follow somebody who only talks about the company that they work for. They might as well
Yeah.
just follow the LinkedIn company page if they want to know what the latest branded message is. So give them a mix of content so that if this person is an expert in the retail industry, that you
Mhm.
are kind of feeding them interesting takes, interesting news announcements, thought leadership, that kind of thing that's happening in the industry, because you want people to view that person as an expert on what's going on in the industry as a whole. They've got to have a holistic view of it, and be able to talk about, okay, well, our business has a plan for this. We can help you do this. Uh, so you have to give them a mix so that they're not just seen as basically just a branded channel, because then you're
Mhm.
defeating the object, and it's not authentic. It's not interesting either.
Absolutely. Hmm. Yeah. So the outcome is that employee advocacy is not about just posting about the company. It's about like being a thought leader. Yeah. On social media or somewhere.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it's about the goal is to try and create influencers. Now,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking influencers, probably micro influencers. It's really about, and I think this is where it's really interesting when you start working with like sales teams, where
Yeah.
they're trying to influence quite a small group of people, people whose names they know, right? It's not that they
Yeah.
have this big nebulous audience of 100,000 people across Europe or whatever, that actually know it's this person, and this person at this company. So they know who they're trying to reach, and really that should be the focus, and enabling them to have conversations with those people. And also, let's not forget also that it's not just about you broadcasting content. Potentially even more useful is enabling people, training people on how to interact with
It's very
others
interesting
and
question. Yeah.
be a good
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn citizen, a good member of the community, and a very active member of the community. And that if you know if there are people that you know that you want to you're trying to engage with, well, then go and engage with them.
Mm-hmm.
Which does not mean hit them up immediately with a connection request and I've seen it being called pitch slapping. I'm sure you've received these too, where
Yeah.
you get a connection request and then immediately, hi, Joe, I saw that you were blah blah blah. Can I do Um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
okay,
Very
but
often.
it's easy to take for granted, I think, or just assume that people kind of know what's the best approach, but actually they don't. Um,
Yeah.
unless they are kind of LinkedIn natives, then they don't. So don't take that for granted. So okay, when is a good time for me to send a connection request? Should I send a note with it? How should I build up to that? Should I start commenting? Should I just start liking their posts? And what? So I think you have to build all of that in. I mean, I think people make the mistake of thinking of advocacy as about, okay, we need a tool.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a tool. Okay, let's put some content in it, as I was saying before, and that's it. But really, no, it's about, yes, you might need that, but really, it's about training. It's about skills. It's about
Yeah.
learning how to do LinkedIn good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is about how to engage with other people, how to respond to their posts without being annoying, by making sure you add value, um, and to start to actually build up a relationship in the same way that you would do at a conference, like a 24/7 industry conference of your target audience. They're
Mm-hmm.
surrounding you, and the thing is, if you're not on LinkedIn, then you're not there, you're at home.
Yeah.
So you're missing out on all those opportunities to interact.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And it's interesting that AI actually somehow maybe spoils it because it's a lot of like AI generated content, a lot AI
Mhm,
generated
mhm.
messages. What do you think about it? How does it
Yeah,
influence employee
good question.
advocacy programs? Yeah.
Well, I've seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn that are on a sort of AI witch hunt.
Yeah.
They're looking for how to spot. Oh, look, this person has used M dashes. They've used emojis. This post must have been written by AI. Therefore, you just dismiss it, right? There's an awful lot of that. There's a lot of discussion about the use of generative AI. I think it's a bit much. I think it's a bit ridiculous. I think Gen AI is a great tool. It should be considered as a tool, not a solution. I honestly don't think there's anything wrong in using Copilot, ChatGPT, whatever, to help you write a post.
Mhm.
What I think is wrong is if you just rely on AI to write your post for you, and
Mhm.
effectively come up with the content as well.
Mhm.
But the reality is, not everybody is a good writer. Not everybody is a very good communicator. So they might have a really interesting point of view, but they just are not good at articulating it. I don't see that there's anything wrong in using a tool. There's something wrong with using spell check. that's a tool as well to help you
Absolutely.
communicate better, right?
Hmm.
Or Grammarly, use Gen AI in the same way. I think
Yeah.
it's really useful and practical. Because
Hmm.
again, unsurprisingly, of course, LinkedIn's full of copywriters who are up in arms about it, and I totally
Hmm.
get that. It is a bit of a threat to their livelihood, so I understand that completely. But I think also, yeah, it sort of democratizes the communication a little bit by helping level the playing field somewhat. I think it not a bad idea if we had some way of like tagging. There's now protocols for tagging imagery to say that this was generated by AI. Well,
Hmm.
that you could say I used AI to help me with this post. And there is that question of authenticity, but I think it's not inauthentic to have Gen AI help you write a post as long as it's the view, the
Hmm.
content is yours. Also just having be sensible about it, read it, make sure it's in your voice, because after a while, you do recognize the Gen AI voice for sure. There are
Hmm.
certain things in certain ways it capitalizes things, that punctuates things that
Yeah. Some
you can
special
see
words.
that.
Yeah.
Right,
Hmm.
exactly. But so make sure that it feels like you. And would I say this to somebody in person, or would
Hmm.
they look at me
Yeah.
like I'm a weirdo? And some of the advocacy tools are integrating AI into them. So Sociable, for instance, has
Hmm.
Gen AI functionality in it, so that you can. So, for instance, for us, we could provide people with a kind of basic message, but then they can use Gen AI that actually learns from
Hmm.
the user, their tone of voice and their preferences, to rewrite it for them in their tone of voice, and be able to do that in quite sophisticated ways. And do, okay, can you make this sound more professional? This, make this sound a bit more unprofessional, more relaxed, and so on.
Hmm.
I think those are great. I think there's a
Yeah.
very good use of AI,
Hmm.
and I think also that obviously AI isn't just about generative AI. I think the idea of having co-pilots, not Microsoft Copilot, but co-pilots integrated, or like an AI concierge inside
Hmm.
platforms. I think we've had quite a few conversations with different platforms about that. Just, I'd like to be able to log in, and it gives me, okay, here's 5 things you need to look into today. Something like that, or that I can just type in okay, if it's like Google Analytics or something that I can just easily type in. Okay, I'm trying to find out, what percentage
Hmm.
of X, Y, Z, and then it actually actually gives me a sensible answer to that. Then I think that's a really good use of AI. I think the one area I'm
Hmm.
not really a big fan of is imagery.
Hmm.
Although I have used it a couple of times, but mostly sort of tongue in cheek. But there's the LinkedIn trend of the little toy package version of your, which I've seen an awful lot of,
I've
and
seen so
you know
many of them. Yeah.
right, and it's a kind of easy way for people to create a post, right? Some people are like, I don't know
Yeah.
what to post about. Okay, well, here's my, and people are going to react to it, right? It's nice. Um, of course, there is the argument to say, well, it's using up a huge amount of computing power to do that. So actually, it's not very eco-friendly to be doing that for
Oh,
something
that's
that's
nice
really a
to
bit
think about it. Yeah.
right. That yeah. I
Hmm.
mean,
It's
yeah.
important.
I mean, that's a whole other subject. I think it's worth exploring
Hmm.
sometime. Is about the
Yeah.
how eco-friendly is social media, and how green is your social, because you can't forget that all the imagery and the gifs and the videos and stuff,
Hmm.
the
Especially
more
videos.
animation there is in those things, the more power it uses up,
Yeah,
which
it's true.
all has
I,
a cost.
I recently saw news that uh, Chat GPT and OpenAI founder, he said that when you are being polite to
I
Chat
saw that
GPT,
today. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you
yeah. Sam,
you spend
Sam.
actually more like energy and millions of dollars. Yeah, so it's
Yeah,
funny.
I mean, yeah.
Mm.
I personally I'm try and be polite. It's the same thing as being polite to Alexa or Siri
Hmm.
or somebody. I think, I mean, apparently it does cost something to be polite, but I think it's good that people
Yeah.
shouldn't get used to being just ordering things around.
Hmm.
Um, but anyway, yeah, it's a side thing. But yeah, so I think AI
Yeah.
has a place for sure.
Hmm.
Um, it has to be used thoughtfully, and especially actually for teams that, if they are trying to create content for other people, to be able to say, okay, can you create 5 versions of this same post,
Hmm. Yeah.
right, rather than having just one version. Then
You
it's
can
it's a great
combine.
way to
Hmm.
shortcut things.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah, I also use AI a lot because I'm not an English native speaker, so it's really see just time
well, I
saving
mean,
and
absolutely. I think
useful.
that's a very
Mhm.
valid use of AI, is just to make sure that does
Yeah.
it make sense?
But actually, it's an interesting thing about pictures because we've also noticed that on LinkedIn, when we use, for example, AI generated pictures in the post, they usually perform not so good comparing to
Mm,
some authentic pictures, photos, selfies,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
so
I think
I agree with
I
you.
think that that's something else that authenticity is very important. Obviously, it's really
Mhm.
everything. The most important thing about social, and I think people are quite good at detecting inauthenticity. And of course, people are, yeah, as I said, trying very hard to detect use of Gen AI and stuff. But just as that's, for me, that's not necessarily naturally authentic. But this is true, I think, generally of social media, is that audiences are very good at kind of filtering,
Mhm.
and the inauthentic stuff filters down
Yeah.
to the bottom. It just happens naturally.
Yeah, they already have experience and intuition a little bit. Yeah, it's
Yeah, exactly.
um, I would like to deep dive into like sales related, maybe
Hmm.
content and employee advocacy. Before you spoke at our conference and you've talked about ABM program you've
Hmm.
launched.
Yes.
Okay, can you just tell us more about it? How it
Yes,
works?
absolutely. So the goal uh, was to work with the ABM team, um,
Mm-hmm.
to embed um, employee advocacy behaviors, if you like, social
Mm-hmm.
selling, to some behaviors within sales teams. So the high priority sales teams, to enable them, first of all, just to kind of understand that actually LinkedIn and Sales Navigator should be part of their toolkit, their sales
Yeah.
toolkit. That the, like the analogy I said earlier about the conference, industry conference, that this is your targets are all there, or at least you can see actually quite easily, are your targets there? Are they on LinkedIn? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a simple way of reaching them and building a relationship with them. It's not a quick way. It takes time. You have to nurture these relationships. It takes longer probably digitally than it does in person, but it's a way of just starting to make a connection with somebody that ideally you can then convert that connection into an in real life connection. Say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, do you want to meet for a coffee? That both going to be in San Francisco next week, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so what we did was, the first thing we did was did an audit, basically. First of all, looking at our people, the sales teams, and their use of LinkedIn today. Are they
Mm-hmm.
using it? Are they using it well? How often are they posting? When they post, are they talking about the brand? Are they talking about the industry that
Yeah,
they're selling in?
it's important.
Are they
Mhm.
connected with their target clients? Are they following the company pages? All that kind of stuff. And Sales Navigator, do they have a license? Are they
Mhm.
using it? What level of proficiency do they have at using it? And then, okay, we got lists of their kind of target people. Who are they?
Mhm.
They're the most. crucial decision makers for them, are they on LinkedIn?
Mm-hmm.
If so, are they frequent users? Are they posting themselves? If they do post, what are they talking about? What seems to be important to them? What's in their bio? Keywords that are in their bio, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also affinity with some of our kind of transversal priority topics as well. Something like
Yeah.
sustainability. Does that seem to be important to this individual or to this group of individuals across this company? So it's get a bit of market intelligence from them. Does this seem to be something? Are they talking about Gen AI, for
Mm-hmm.
instance? As you build up a picture of the individuals and the client themselves and the industry as well. And it's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting to start to see trends of things that are being talked about within an industry, or some industries where they're clearly quite averse to using social media. There was definitely some industries that are much more active than others, and you have to think, well, this is, and sometimes it's because there's regulatory issues, financial services, things
Yeah.
like that make it actually quite difficult for them to talk about their job and what they do and what goes on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also then to look like new Sales Navigator to see, okay, what kind of connections are there? Who is
Mm-hmm.
connected to whom? If I want to reach this person, if I start posting on LinkedIn and start trying to follow them, am I wasting my time? Is there a chance they're going to see it, or are there other people we can see that are influencing that person as well? So it's all about sort of building up a map of, okay, how do I reach this person, and so that I can start putting putting myself in front of them, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about training again. Then it is more or less the same process as for the other employee advocacy. It's about the skills, about enabling them to use LinkedIn well,
Yeah.
and all of that stuff, and helping them with content. But then it's also around particular activations. So whether that's
Mm-hmm.
an industry event, and I've mentioned events quite a few times. I mean, I think those are the kind of the ultimate advocacy opportunities, honestly, not just for sales, because they are. Thankfully, we're back to in-person events mostly, and
Mm-hmm.
they're great content creation opportunities. Go and shoot lots of video, talking head videos, and things like that. But also a great opportunity to turn digital relationships into real life ones. So it's about creating a playbook on, okay, you've got an event. How do you use advocacy to enable, and this isn't just about sales, but generally, how do you use advocacy? What role should it play as part of the marketer, as part of your marketing around this event?
Mm-hmm.
What's the playbook for that? What do you do before the event? What kind of preparation should you do? Um,
During the event, yeah.
yeah, exactly. Then during
Mm-hmm.
the event, what are the opportunities to make the most of? And after the event, we wrote a whole playbook
Mm-hmm.
on this,
That's
on
amazing.
how to
Mm-hmm.
do advocacy, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and the goals to create templates and things like that, so that they can literally just to help them fill in. Okay, here's my calendar, my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
What are the kind of things? How soon shall I start talking about the event? How soon should I share a post about the event on our advocacy tool,
Mm-hmm.
for instance? So, yeah, it
Yeah.
was really quite in depth, because what we found is that sort of different levels to advocacy, and
Mm-hmm.
as I said, and I think our goals quite ambitious. Really wanted to transform the way that we do social.
Yeah.
We know that company organic content doesn't do well anymore. Nobody wants it, including LinkedIn. And so, okay, well, what do you replace it with? And I think obviously there's
That's
ads, of course, but also advocacy. But then the
mm-hmm.
marketers, you should help them understand. Okay, well, so what's that? What does that mean for me in my campaign? Because it's not just about, okay, well, I've got to put some messages into our advocacy tool. It's a lot more than that. And so, how do you make the most of the opportunity?
Yeah. So for ABM, I would like to summarize. So first of all, for example, sales or business development professionals, they start with they're like creating the company's list, like target companies lists.
Mhm.
Then they find these people on LinkedIn, and of course, before that, they prepare their profile. They probably post something, and then
Yeah,
we do mostly networking and posting, right? Networking to maybe to generate some new opportunities, to maybe invite people to meet somewhere or the conference, or yeah, and they post to actually share their expertise, thought leadership, to show some companies case studies. Yeah, is it how
yeah,
it works?
exactly. Just
Hmm.
enabling them to make the most of LinkedIn, really, and
Yeah.
understanding that this really is an incredible sales tool for them.
Hmm.
So how to make the most of it. So yeah, and some of that is very basic about, okay, well, your profile, what should your profile look like? Your picture is bad. You need a full color picture, can barely see your face, very basic stuff like that. All the way your bio, and then eventually it comes to, okay, now you've got a good. I think the first thing you have to start with is the profile. That's the
Hmm.
foundation. Once you've got that, okay, now start posting some stuff, start
Hmm.
engaging with other people. A fairly, I would say, logical path to follow
Hmm.
and then you get to, okay, you've got specific activations, you've got a specific piece of content. Okay, you've got this research report coming out. It's got some really interesting insights that I think relevant
Hmm.
for your targets or what you do with it.
Makes a lot of sense. But also, I want to talk about some risks behind
Mhm,
it, because
mhm,
I think
mhm.
that if every, or maybe not every, but some employees, they just are very active on social media, it's like managing hundreds of like mini brand channels. Something
Yeah.
could happen, they could say something like wrong. Is this risk worth taking? First question. Yeah.
Well, it depends on who you ask. I think the instinct of leadership tends to be,
Mhm.
no, we can't
Yeah.
control them. How can we control them? Every employee is a reputational risk. And it's true. Absolutely, they are. But that doesn't mean there aren't things you can do to mitigate the risk. So first thing first is I
Mhm.
think you have to have some kind of guideline that applies
Yeah.
to all employees or code of conduct. You want your employees to feel like they can use social media to talk about their job, but you have to provide guardrails for them so that they feel
Mhm.
comfortable doing it. They can do it, know that they can do it safely, and that the business feels comfortable with it too. So create a code of conduct. Keep it short, couple of pages, easily digestible. Cover, yeah, what can you talk about, and that's company confidential, client confidential content, obviously stuff like that, or copyrighted material, but also things like security. Is it okay to share a picture of you with your security badge,
Mhm.
for instance?
Yeah.
Things like that. The number one most important thing you should say in it is just let people know, remind them that as an employee, when you're on social, you are representing the brand.
Yeah.
And that whether you mention your employer or not, people will figure it out. If they're annoyed by what you're saying or insulted and they want somebody to complain to, they're going to go look on a different platform. So if you complain on it upset somebody on Facebook, they go and look you up on LinkedIn and find, and then they'll go and complain to you. I know because I've read the complaints. One thing that's really important to remember is that you should treat social media like the office place to some extent. Obviously, there are certain things people say and do on social media that you wouldn't do in an office, but the way you conduct yourself is a reflection on you and on the brand, and it doesn't go away ever.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
always there. So that's the number one thing is people to understand. Then, as I said, give them some simple do's and don'ts with it. Most of which really boils down to don't be an idiot. Don't be stupid. Really is think before you post. Um, and respect people, respect diversity of views, respect company policy, confidentiality, data privacy, things like that.
Mhm.
But I think that's you have to have that in place. But it's not enough just to kind of create a PDF and stick it up on your intranet. You have to make sure
Yeah.
that people have read it and are aware of it. So create a training module, make it simple again, fairly short, and make all your employees do it. Make sure it's part of your onboarding process for
Mm-hmm.
new hires, that they have to understand what is expected of them by the company.
And
Your
have you?
leadership will like that, that'll provide some kind of reassurance, and also it provides them with a mechanism for consequences. So,
Mm-hmm.
well, we said it in black and white. We know you did the training, and yet you did it anyway. Therefore, there is a consequence here. I think then you have to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other things, you have to trust people. I think a big factor in employee advocacy that sometimes gets overlooked is about how people feel about the company that they work for. And that's something that somebody in my role is out of my control.
Yeah.
But
More about
if
HR
people,
brand, probably. Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And the in-office experience or whatever it is, the
Yeah.
onboarding experience is you want happy employees that want to talk about the company or are proud to talk about the
Mm-hmm.
company, excited about it, and then
Yeah.
happy employees will make happy advocates, good advocates for your business. If they're disgruntled, then you're going to end up with a problem quite easily. And yeah, of course, that definitely happens in disgruntled
Mm-hmm.
former employees as well. But
And
you
have
can't control
you?
everybody.
Yeah, sorry for interruption. Have you ever navigated a social media incident? Something maybe
Mhm.
happened, and you've done
Quite a few.
something with that?
Quite a few, although when you
Uh-huh.
consider that working for a company with over 300,000 employees, not that many.
Mm-hmm.
In the grand scheme of things, really, it's a tiny fraction. But sometimes, of course, it just takes one incident can have a huge ripple effect. Fortunately, never had to deal with one that had a massive ripple effect. There was a hacking incident, but that wasn't an employee advocacy
Mm-hmm.
issue. Yeah, I'm sure there've been all sorts of different things. Sometimes it's been somebody trying to effectively blackmail an employee by sharing. Maybe they'd shared something by direct message, and then they're trying to shame them, something like that. I had
Mm-hmm.
that before
That's
a few
crazy.
times. Yeah, which they did that on their own time and their own to do with us. We're
Mm-hmm.
not interested. Yeah, or employees that are being attacked, harassed on
Mm-hmm.
social by like an ex, and then tagging the company to try and embarrass them. That's happened a lot. And then, of course, yeah, there are times where people have kind of got into they've
Mm-hmm.
lost their cool and got into an argument, and they got into a pointless flame war with somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
those kind of instances, you just have to sort of take the person aside and say, look, I wasn't very clever.
What
uh,
to do? What to do if something happened? Your employee got emotional, maybe on social media. It may
mhm,
influence a
yeah.
brand. What to do?
That's really a question ultimately for HR to decide what the
Yeah.
consequence is. It depends on the severity of what they said, the tone, the nature of what they said. If it's just like one person saying you suck and the other person, no, you suck, and just have a word with them and say, look. And normally you'd get like their manager, right? Somebody who knows
Mm-hmm.
them to say, this came to our attention. So you just have to be careful because this could reflect badly on you. This
Mm-hmm.
is conduct unbecoming, and it may come up in your end of year review. So, you know, you don't want to do that. Of course, we can't tell people exactly what they can and can't do on social. It's their own personal network. But we can tell them that if you do certain things, there will be consequences
Mm-hmm.
for it. But if it's something more serious, then, as I said, really, it depends on the nature
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
the incident and the complaints for
Yeah.
sure. One thing
Different
that's
approach.
why we have to have some guideline to be able to
Mhm.
give people, okay, as I said, the guardrails, so that they know it's very clear that something that you can then refer back to and said, like, here's
Mhm.
where you cross the line, right? This is absolutely
Mhm.
in contradiction to the policy.
Yeah. And actually, one more risk. It's a different kind of risk. I usually hear from top managers or from like people managers. They are afraid that if, for example, their employees become very visible online on social media, they will be approached by recruiters, of course, and
Mhm.
they will
Mhm.
leave a company. What do you think? Is it a valid concern?
Yes, it is absolutely. But the thing is, so the answer to that then is to not do it at all, which is much
Mhm.
more of a risk, I think, than to do that. And then
Yeah.
again, it's about, well, make sure that the employee is happy and feels valued. then
Yeah.
they're less likely to be tempted away. But
Hmm.
this definitely comes up. This definitely is an issue and a concern that I've heard at, the most senior level.
Benefits are like
Yeah,
greater than the risks.
right.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
just not compatible with employee advocacy. I think, if you talk to cybersecurity experts, they would probably say, "Well, I'd rather that there were no company
Hmm.
employees on social media. Nobody says that they work for Capgemini, because then there might be some social engineering, or they're vulnerable to a phishing attack and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right?" So
Mhm.
a lawyer would probably say the same thing, more or less,
Mhm.
and maybe a CEO too. You just have to point out the reality of the situation and the benefits, as you say,
Mhm.
that really the benefits and the potential risks are generally very small. And ideally, if you've been doing this for a while, then you're documenting all of those instances that happen, so that you can say, look, okay, so in
Mhm.
2024, we had 3 incidents in the whole year out of 350,000 employees.
Yeah.
That's a pretty small percentage, right?
Mhm.
And on the other side is look at all the benefit that we've had
Mhm.
from it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Actually, I usually notice that even employees that are not active on LinkedIn, for example, they are approached by recruiters if they fit some criteria of these recruiters. Of course, recruiters,
Mhm.
they don't assess the profile. Is it active? Does it have
Yeah,
posts, or it's
yeah,
just a profile that exists on LinkedIn?
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
actually
I mean,
what we
you can't stop
have.
your employees being approached, just
Mhm.
as you can't stop them looking at LinkedIn jobs, right?
Mhm.
You can't stop them looking in the newspaper and seeing ads for other
Yeah,
companies. That's just
definitely.
the way it is.
Mhm.
So the way you combat it is by making sure that they feel valued and don't want to leave.
Mhm. Yeah, and I also noticed that people who are participating in employee advocacy programs, they usually feel like more valued because
Yeah,
company invests in them and they
they're getting
develop their
special
person.
treatment.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
special
and
recognition. Absolutely.
and that's why they just choose to stay because they feel valued. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and enabled.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah.
That's very important. Like I said at the beginning, you don't stand in people's way as well. I've had that
Mm-hmm.
conversation with people many times. Is like, I don't want to stand in your way. If you're doing this well, then that's great. In which case, my job is just to help you answer any questions you
Mm-hmm.
have or things that you need.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting fact, and actually, it's interesting about your personal profile. You've built an amazing program for other employees to empower them. But how do you approach your own
Mhm.
online presence, your social media profile?
I've not been very good at practicing what I preach. I've started to more recently, but generally, like LinkedIn, I think put some effort into my profile and followed all my own guidance about profiles, but I'm not a big content creator, even
Hmm.
though I have a background in copywriting and stuff like that. But partly it's time, partly it's I spend all day thinking about social media in this corporate setting. I don't really feel like doing it when I get home, remotely home. I personally go through kind of cycles in terms of my own use of LinkedIn and how
Hmm.
much I like it. That you spend too much time on LinkedIn, and I find that I've just seen the same post over and over and over again. It's just that basic inauthenticity over and over again. And this is a complaint that I hear from lots of people. It's like just full of people kind of self-aggrandizing, yeah, just trying to BS their way to a influential position, and it's absolutely true. But as I said, all the networks are kind of self-regulating, and so it's just you just have to. And it's my answer actually to
Hmm.
anybody who says, "Oh, social media is awful." I go on Twitter and it's all horrible. And my answer has always been, it's like, well, you are responsible for your feed. If you don't like what somebody's saying, then don't follow them.
Yeah,
Of course, you
sure.
don't have total control over the algorithm, but the algorithm is responding to you and to what you're responding to. So you can control it in that way. Yeah, okay, there is a lot of a lot of crap on LinkedIn, but amongst the crap, there is some gold in there that really makes it worthwhile and inspires me to share content. So I always have in the back of my mind when I think about writing a post is like, well, is this one of those crap posts where I'm just posting for the sake of it, using something? Oh, that's an opportunity. I can put that on LinkedIn, kind of
Mhm.
thing. So I think because I'm naturally quite a cynical person, yeah, I don't want to fall into that trap myself. Yeah, I don't know. It's not for me to judge really whether I'm doing it well or not. Other people can tell me that. I think for me, it's just about just being myself 100%.
Mhm.
And if I feel like talking about something or responding, adding a
Mhm.
comment on somebody else's post, not doing that just for the sake of it, even though I'm kind of like, well, really best practice, I should be add like meaningful comments on like 4 posts a day kind of thing. But yeah, just try not to do it for the sake of it, because it's
Mhm.
it's just a waste of my time. It's a waste of everybody else's
Mhm.
time, and people will see through it. So I have a
Mhm.
quite a strong filter on myself.
Mhm.
That
Yeah, I
that's
think authenticity is very important, is a key actually. So I
yeah.
wish you a lot of success with your content. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
and actually, I've noticed that you've shared a lot of personal things, not maybe not
Mhm.
not a lot of, but some personal stuff, like about trip to California and a
Yeah.
photo of a puppy. What do you think about sharing personal content on LinkedIn in general?
It,
How,
it,
yeah.
it does better. Personal content does better. I was kind of cursing LinkedIn when it started to feel like it was turning into Facebook, and people were sharing,
Mhm.
more selfies and things like that. But I've come around, and while I'm not going to use it as my own personal Instagram account, I think it's tied up with advocacy. The value of advocacy is all about those one-to-one personal connections that you can have. And you can't do that without sharing a bit of yourself. Things that make you you, make you unique, make you have something interesting to say, something that's appealing, and that you're not just a robot. You're not just, it's what differentiates us from the robots from Gen AI is, I mean, actually,
Mhm.
I'm parroting what I said in my last post, actually, but I think we're so afraid in a professional setting to be human and to
Mhm.
show imperfection. It's something that throughout my career I've always just really hated, is the idea of people, one person at home, one person in the office. I've had close friends that I
Mhm.
worked with that I've seen, and I'm like, you are two different people. And you come into the office, you talk differently, you act
Mhm.
differently. For me, I'm like, well, which one's the real you? And
Yeah.
you, so I don't know. It's something that I guess a bit of a chip on my shoulder about authenticity. But I think it's okay to share a bit of yourself, and I think that is
Mhm.
actually essential to forging a good connection with somebody. Doesn't mean I'm
Yeah.
going to start sharing pictures of my breakfast and every complaint that I have. I see a lot of selfies on posts, unnecessary selfies that don't really have
Mhm.
anything to do with the post. And so I'm always a little bit cynical about those. It seems the more conventionally attractive the person is, the more likely you're going to see a selfie, which, okay, yes, they're appealing to human nature, and that's just the way of the world. But I'm like, come on. No.
Yeah, it's not about their thoughts, their
Right,
expertise.
exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with sharing a selfie now and again, but I mean, personally, I don't, but that's just me.
Mhm. Okay, yeah, but still, I think it even helps in sales, in B2B sales, because people
Mhm.
are still people
You're
and they
buying
need
from
some
people.
personal interactions.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
100%, 100%.
Mhm.
I think, yeah, to be able to, there's nothing wrong in sharing. I don't know, that you took your daughter to football practice or something like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I think, yeah, sometimes you see people doing that, but they're trying to kind of force some kind of meaningful insight about the workplace or something into that moment, and there it's like,
It feels artificial, very
yeah,
artificial.
it's horribly artificial, and you're going to end up on LinkedIn lunatics, on Reddit, which I'm a big fan of. I don't like that, but I think it
Yeah.
has its place for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And one final question. What maybe advice would you give to someone who's just starting, who's looking to build their personal brand and start sharing maybe their expertise online?
Mm.
I think.
Just do it. Don't think about it too much. Just do it.
Mhm.
If you start
Yeah.
overthinking it, which is something that I do for my own profiles, I overthink like a post, then you're never going to get anywhere. One thing I've noticed with my own content is the posts that I write spontaneously, rather than ones that I've had like in a Word document I've been tinkering with, the ones that I do spontaneously do much better than
Mhm.
the carefully crafted post. And so I think just do it. Social media should be fun. If it's not fun, then don't do it. I think really ultimately social media is an entertainment medium, even if you're talking about the intricacies of cloud services or something like that. But ultimately people generally are on there scrolling on there for a reprieve from whatever they're doing, and you can make it fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. And don't try and have too big a plan. Don't get obsessed by the numbers. Don't focus too much on how many impressions your post got and stuff like that. Just start posting. Post about whatever you feel like posting about. That's the number one thing is just do
Mhm.
it. Just do it. And then ones you can delete stuff if you decide you didn't like that post, or that posted embarrassingly badly. If you feel that way, then fine, just delete it. Who cares? It's social media. You're not writing law. Um,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, it's an
So,
amazing advice actually. People always overthink
mhm.
the social media
Yeah,
posts and activities
yeah.
they do. Yeah, just do it. It's
And there are lots of
amazing.
people who make their living advising people on. Sometimes I feel like when I go on LinkedIn, I'm getting shouted at. Don't do this. These are 5 mistakes that you're doing. If you're not doing this, then you'll probably suck. And things like that. It's like, all right, thanks very much, but don't worry about that.
Mhm.
Just do
Yeah.
what feels right to you. But also, actually, and the second thing is be a good community member. Don't just
Mhm.
think about yourself. Think about,
That's great.
read what other people are doing, and interact with them. Best way to build your network
Mhm.
is to do that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think it's very important, and it's a great advice for those who are starting and those who are continuing as well. Yeah. Thank you so much
Right? Yeah,
for
I think so too. Yeah.